This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Stevenson with his own moves. Carrington. North are in front.
Hello, and welcome back to North Pod. It is another game down in the AFLW, 8 games down, 3 to go. And we are still on top, holding off the Hawks and the Lions, who have only lost once, but we have the draw. We're undefeated. And, another good afternoon watching North Melbourne play football. I have to say, I know I said at the start of the season, it's just so refreshing to watch your sports team and know that they're going to win, or be very confident they're going to win. The start of this game, I'll go into in a minute, but, we weren't super dominant to start off with. It was a bit of a back and forth first quarter, and even watching that, I just had full confidence that we were going to settle into the game. We were going to make a couple of small adjustments and we'd be fine, and we were. It's just it makes such a big difference compared to watching the North Melbourne men's team, or last night I went to watch the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix in the basketball, who are off to a winless start and just fired their coach. So a massive difference watching a really good football team go about their business. The Hawks actually had a massive win against the Eagles and have boosted their percentage, and they're into second. So we do have some competition at the top of the ladder. Watching that game did make me maybe not worry. That's probably the wrong word, but we don't play Hawthorn in the home and away. So if we are to come up against them in finals, it's equal in that we haven't played them, they haven't played us, but you'd like to at least have a look at kind of how you match up against the side, I think, before you meet them in finals. So that's a little bit of maybe a worry is the wrong word, but just something to think about. If we were to come up against them in the qualifying final, maybe it's a little bit different. It's non-elimination, and you've got a bit of time to make some adjustments. Anyway, just something worth thinking about. I still am very confident with the way that we're playing, and we shouldn't be. It's probably more of a loser's attitude to think that way. I'm probably more used to thinking that way. But when you're the hunted, I think you just trust that your footy's going to get the job done, and that's worked pretty well for us so far in the 7 rounds, 8 games that we've played. We continue just to do what we need to do to push through the season, and it's been fun to talk about so far. Let's get into this game against Sydney. Team selection. Only the one change. Kate Sheila returned from her elbow injury. It was just the 1 week out, as she had spoken about or hoped that it was going to be. Eliza Shannon is the unlucky one to miss out, so a couple of players shuffling positions, obviously, with Sheila playing forward and Shannon being a defender. We move a few magnets around to make that work, but just the one change. I do feel bad for Eliza Shannon. She's fought back from injury. She's got herself in for a game, and I thought played a pretty good game last week, but unfortunately, this is what happens when you've got a super strong and fit side. We have very few injuries. Emma Carney's really our only major injury to worry about. I mean, potentially Erica O'Shea has gotten injured in this game and potentially might need to miss some time, and you would think that Eliza Shannon's first in for her, so she might get another chance. But it's great to have a really fit side and not a lot to talk about in terms of the ins and outs, because most players are playing their role each week, which is a fresh change from what it was like covering the men's side during those winter months. Match result: North Melbourne 14-3-87 defeats Sydney Swans 4-3-27. So a 10-goal win for North Melbourne. And like I mentioned off the top, it was a bit of an odd first quarter. Both sides were super efficient inside 50. We kicked 3 quick goals each, and it was back and forth. It looked like there wasn't going to be a lot of defending going on. It was refreshing to watch a game that was being played in clear conditions with no rain and no significant wind to contend with. So it was a different kind of game to watch. And the first 20 minutes or so, or probably 15 minutes or so, it was goal for goal, and it looked like Sydney had really come to play. I'm sure Mick Malthouse is not happy with me saying that, but it looked like they'd really turned up to compete and were going with us goal for goal to start off with. And then we took control. We kicked a couple of goals late in the first quarter to take a lead into quarter time. We really shut the Swans down in the second quarter, and whilst we weren't able to score super heavily, we were able to stop them from scoring altogether. And then we just killed the game in the third quarter, put it to bed. We kicked the next 11 goals after it was 3 goals each. early or midway through the first quarter. We kicked 11 on the trot, and then Sydney were able to kick the last goal of the game to put some... No, I mean, I was going to say put some respect into the scoreline. It's still an absolute belting 87-27. So they kicked the last goal of the game, I guess, to break our streak. We were just able to score at will, and our forward half players worked so well together. Compared, they were super efficient. They were making some great decisions with ball in hand, and the defenders up the other end were just really shutting down the Swans. After that fast start, I thought our mids dropped back really well, and clogged up the Swans forward 50, and that allowed us to then slingshot, and that's the perfect way that we're able to play at the moment. Just grab a clearance from defensive half, run and gun, get out the back, or win those one-on-one opportunities further up the ground, and we were able to do that pretty well. There was a passage in the third quarter which really told the story. Libby Birch took an intercept mark inside 50, maybe 40 metres out from the Swans' goal, immediately bit off a medium-length kick, probably a 30-metre kick through the middle. Tripodi marked it, got the handball quickly off to Riddell, who then kicked long to Sheila, sort of on the 50. She again turned quickly and kicked it forward to Jenna Bruton, who took a mark inside 50, maybe 30 metres out. Could have had the shot, but again, she kicked over the top to Alice O'Loughlin, who was free and who goaled. And that just summed up the way that we play at our best. It's fast. The commentators referenced it a couple of times. We know exactly where we expect our teammates to be, and so we're able to play on quickly because we know that we're going to have support and there's going to be options for us. The Birch kick and the Tripodi hand pass were both pretty risky. They were, they probably come off 80 to 90% of the time, and that one time it doesn't come off, you look a bit silly, but that's what enables you to get the outnumber at the back. Like Alice O'Loughlin was free in the goal square because we had one extra player who'd streamed inside 50 and was available for it. So that, I think, kind of sums up how we want to play our footy and how we play our footy at our best. It was unselfish, it was fast, it was accurate, and we just broke the back of the Swans players with plays like that through the afternoon. So 10-goal wins, 60 points, and just another ticked box really as we head towards the end of the AFLW season. We know we've got that game against the Crows in a fortnight's time that is no doubt marked on the calendars as that last big test, although Essendon are a solid side next week and we're playing them away, so you wouldn't want to go in there too overly confident. Certainly the last round against the Gold Coast, who are sitting last and only have a draw to their name so far, I think you can feel pretty confident about that game. But look, to use the analogy that the players love to use, we'll just take it 1 week at a time. You get to finals, hopefully you're sitting first or second, and then you win 3 games and you win the premiership. That has to be the plan. That has to be what the club's looking to do. And we're pretty fit. We're playing pretty well, and I think if the weather is anything like it was on this Sunday afternoon, I think we're going to be a really hard team to beat. Story of the game, and I mean, I referenced one part of it in that we were just able to scythe through the Sydney defence with fast ball movement. I think the other part of it was, the commentary went on and on about it, but our efficiency inside 50 was the difference in the game. For periods and long periods at times, the ball did live in the Swans forward 70 metres or so. They just weren't able to turn that possession battle or the possession win into goals. They won the inside 50 count 32-31, so it was pretty even, but the ball did spend, more time in their forward half than you would expect based on the scoreline, and the commentary mentioned that over and over again. They were certainly trying to talk up an even contest despite the scoreboard. But our efficiency inside 50 just was far superior. 61% of the time it went inside 50, we scored to their 28%. And they did kick a couple of scores late in the game to, make that number look a little bit more forgiving. It was probably hovering more around the 20% up until late in the game. It just played right into our hands because as soon as we were able to get that space out the back, we cleared the ball, we slingshot it up, and we're able to score. I think the defensive group and the midfielders who were pushing back did a fantastic job. Jazz Ferguson had a great moment with a goal-saving push, I guess, which was a perfect example of our desperation with the way that we defended. Her player had just picked up the ball. She was going to take a snap, which, may have been a score, may not have been, but Jazz was able to just have that closing speed, give the opposition a push in the side, and snuff out any chance for the Swans to score at all. And that's the kind of desperation from the defenders that kept the Swans to only 27 points for the day. We're only averaging about 20-odd points against every game. So that's the kind of defence that, is winning us football games. And although a lot of that doesn't, necessarily come up on the stat sheet, we know that Birch and Ferguson are playing great defensive roles, and players like Wright and Bresnahan, O'Shea, at times Tess Craven and Jenna Bruton are doing a really good job rebounding that footy off half-back. So the Swans' inside 50 was super congested and sloppy and allowed our defenders to tackle and to corral. And 93 tackles we laid. The Swans laid 108, so more, but, it was a super contested game and, just speaks to how contested it was. The Swans really wanted to send numbers to the contest and just hope to slow things down, but they weren't able to do that. It was a very high stoppage game. There were 95 hit-outs between both sides, so a lot of boundary throw-ins and ball-ups, but once we were able to get that ball out into space, we dominated, and that's what allowed us to get out to that 10-goal or 11-goal lead it was at one point. So, sure, the Swans were able to stifle us, they were able to slow us down, but ultimately we did break their back in the third quarter and really, really put them to the sword during that time. It was a 4-goal to none quarter. We then polled on another 4 in the last quarter. So an 8-goal second half to 1 is, where the game was really put to bed. And I think, that the coaching staff and Croc, I think, would be super, super pleased with how we're able to adapt. So for me, that was the story of the game. The efficiency difference, just massive, and our ability to actually create those inside 50s or turn those inside 50s into scoring opportunities. And, we were accurate too. 14-3 says that we didn't waste too many opportunities, whereas, in the conditions when it's been a bit wetter or windier, where we've been more at a 50% strike rate in terms of scores being goals, with these better conditions, we were more effective, and you'd hope that's the case, but really, really, really pleasing way to go about it. Let's have a look at the 5 stars. So if you're a new listener, this is the 4 best North Melbourne players and the best opposition player on the ground, according to me. So you can take it with a grain of salt if you'd like. And I mean, look, it's going to be pretty familiar listening. Jazzy Garner, I think, has to get the best on the 4 votes. It's her 3rd best on ground performance in a row and her 5th for the year out of our 8 games. So she is certainly pulling out to a bit of a lead in terms of my voting. 24 disposals, 3 goals, 2 marks, 9 tackles, 7 clearances, a goal assist, 3 inside 50s and 420 metres gained, which was the most for a North Melbourne player on the ground. Just dominated early. Like many other games she has this year, she kind of turns it on for periods and puts the game to bed for us, and then, we'll float forward or have a spell. She doesn't necessarily wear teams down like maybe Ash Riddell does with, absolutely racking up disposals, but that when she's got her hands on the footy, it's gonna do damage. She bullied the opposition in tight, started the game with a clearance, followed that up with a goal assist to Sheila, then goaled herself pretty soon after. Just a really dominant performance when the game was up for grabs, and the fact that you can play midfield, have 7 clearances, and then also kick 3 goals, plus have a goal assist, just speaks to, to what extent her game was having an impact on the scoreboard. It's not just empty possessions with her. She gets meters on the ball, and she actually, her disposals are resulting in scores for us. I think probably the highlight of the game was on 3/4 time. She took a mark just before 3/4 time, was lining up from maybe 35 metres out, so she would have been a good chance to slot it from there. Not a certainty, but certainly a good chance. There was a Sydney player on the mark, and then another Sydney player just seemed to sort of wander towards the mark, definitely encroach on that sort of protected 5 metre zone. The umpire had no choice but to pay 50 metres, which made it a certain goal, and Jazzy Garner just gave it to her. Went for the high five, bit of a sarcastic, you could say arrogant, but I think, honestly, it was just funny. I loved it. It was great value. Kicked her 3rd at that point, and she was unstoppable, Jazzy Garner. So 4 votes for her. I do encourage you to go and have a look at that footage. It's almost uncharacteristic because she's not normally one that spends too much of her time or energy investing in the opposition because she just goes about her business. But I think she was enjoying herself out there, and just love to see it. 3 votes, it's my girl, Alice O'Loughlin. 15 disposals, also kicked 3 goals, 3 marks, 1 of them contested, 4 tackles, 3 inside 50s, and yeah, she was back to her absolute best. An efficient game from her, didn't waste possessions. She was able to get out the back several times and found space. That was ultimately how she scored most of her goals. She was running really hard when we were slingshotting it and either creating an outnumber or being that loose one that's the furthest out the back. Took her opportunities, whereas previous weeks she's been a little inaccurate. Played in front from those restarts where she was able to mark the ball out in front from a quick centre clearance. Yeah, just a really, really good game from Alice O'Loughlin, back to the form that she was in the first couple of games. Had a party trick out on half forward where she kind of smothered the ball and stole the ball at the same time. Didn't result in a goal, unfortunately. She kicked it, I thought a pretty good sort of chip kick over to Talia Randall. It wasn't a mark, and yeah, it just didn't prop up for Talia Randall, so it ended up with a stoppage inside 50. But just a really, really, really solid game from a super dangerous player. I've spoken about her at length this year. I just love her attack on the ball, her attack on the player, and she plays with an aggression that she just wants every possession to finish with a goal for her team. She's got a bit of a killer instinct about her. She always thinks that she's going to win a free kick. She always thinks she's hard done by when she doesn't. And I think, whilst she doesn't argue with the umpires about it, I just love the fact that she is so demanding of herself and of her teammates. So yeah, 3 votes for Alice O'Loughlin, another 3 goals for her, and a fantastic game, and she's definitely one that we want to have coming into form come finals time. Then it was a bit tricky for me to find these other 2 just because there was such an even performance. We had so many good performances in this game. I think Taylor Gatt, for me, based on the damage that she did, has to get the 2 votes. 12 disposals, 7 tackles, 2 clearances. The 3 goal assists is what stands out to me. 4 inside 50s, which was the most on the ground. And I think if we could have her kicking it long inside 50 every time, we'd be in a far better place. She has such a damaging long kick inside 50. The highlight of her game, she took a mark, I think, or got a free kick, one of the 2, kind of out on the wing, and then took the player on the mark on, burnt them, ran her distance, and then just speared it long to Emma King, who took a nice Becky and kicked her goal for the game. She just plays such an important role out on the wing, Taylor Gatt. You do notice her running and creating space. She's not one of those ones that, like a Riddell maybe, who racks up possessions and you don't necessarily notice that she's got it. I think you notice almost every time that Taylor Gatt's got the footy. So possibly that's why I'm giving her the 2. But I think the other part of that is that she has an impact every time she has a disposal. A lot of her kicks are long penetrating kicks that result in scores to us. So another great game from Taylor Gatt. I think she's playing a really important role out on that wing and for the most part holds her shape really well. Doesn't get sucked into the contest, and that's what allows her to find that space. And when we do slingshot, she's often the one that is running on the opposite side of the ground and spreading the defence out a little bit. She doesn't necessarily get possession every time, but she allows our forwards a bit more space because, the opposition players have to respect her and have to at least somewhat cover her out that side. So 2 votes for Taylor Gatt. And then 1, I just mentioned her, but, Ash Riddell had 30 touches, so it's pretty hard to deny her a vote. I don't think it was her most impactful game. Only 3 score involvements from her 30 touches probably speaks to the fact that whilst she was finding the footy, she wasn't able to quite have the impact that she normally would have. 6 tackles, 6 clearances, 3 inside 50s. Just an accumulator type of game. Plenty of contested possessions. So, yeah, probably not her best game. Certainly still had the most possessions on the ground pretty comfortably, and a lot of her work was in tight, like I said. She was often winning it, then kind of handballing it to herself into a bit of space and creating the next stoppage a little bit further up the ground. Her disposal effectiveness probably suffered a little bit as a result. Like I said, it wasn't her best game, but when she was finding it that much, winning the ball that much, and, she wasn't necessarily turning it over. I just don't think that she was having the impact or doing the damage that she has had in other games. So 1 vote I think seems fair. She certainly was doing her part in the middle, and, she's just such a workhorse, Ash Riddell. So I think deserving of the 1 vote. just so many that are unlucky. Neve Martin again is a little unlucky. She kicked 2 goals and was super opportunistic. I'm not too sure, but it seemed to me as though she was playing off half back or certainly sort of a defensive wing role when O'Shea came out of the game. So I'd have to go and watch it again. But towards the end of the game, it did look as though she was kind of coming from the defensive side of the screen a couple of times and not just playing that high half forward role that she can be so damaging in, but she had a great game. Vicky Wall, I'm going to talk about in the positives, but her tackling was ferocious. She nearly killed 2 players. Randell was super dangerous inside 50 again, kicked 2 goals too. So, another low possession, high impact game. Mia King just suffers from being the third best midfielder in a super, super strong midfield in an elite side. She was good again in the contest and, equally probably could have got the 1 vote off Riddell. I thought both our rucks had really strong games. The defenders did their jobs without fuss, like Birch and Ferg and Sarah Wright were nullifying, and then the other halfbacks were just doing halfback things. So, plenty of players there that could have got the 2 or the 1. But for me, it was Garner and O'Loughlin who were pretty clear standout best on and second best ons for me at least. In terms of the best opposition player, a toss-up between 2. I thought Alexia Hamilton as their forward ruck had a really good game. 11 touches, 2 goals, 5 tackles, 21 hit-outs, 4 clearances. The fact that she was able to hit the scoreboard out of the ruck and kept King and Rennie pretty accountable, I thought was pretty good. Davies was their other ruck, but I thought Alexia was probably the strongest or the most impactful of the Sydney ruckmen, or ruck women rather. Hurley was the other. She had a really good game in the midfield, 23 disposals, 15 tackles, and 520 metres gained, which is the most on the ground. So either of those 2, but honestly, there wasn't a standout for Sydney, and that's going to happen when you're 60-point losers, I guess. They had their players that toiled away, but none of them that really got on top of us, or that if you're Darren Crocker, you're looking at how to stop them throughout the game. They weren't as damaging. They certainly tackled hard. Like I said, Hurley had 15 tackles, and Sydney did win the tackle count. But it was a super contested game, and that's the way that they want to play. So yeah, I think that's the votes for me. Garner 4, O'Loughlin 3, Gatt 2, Riddell 1, and let's give it to Alexia Hamilton for the best opposition player. In terms of what the North Podium looks like, it's the podium of players on the votes for this point of the year with 8 games down. And Jazzy Garner is out to a bit of a lead now on 24 votes. Ash Riddell on 17. There's the Harry Sheasel, Tristan Sherry, and Luke Davies-Uniacke of this side in terms of well out in front. O'Loughlin's now an outright third on 7 votes. Birch, Randall 5, Sheila 4, Gatt, Carney, Eddie, Mia King, and Sarah Wright on 3. So a really nice spread underneath there. The difference here between the men's and the women's side is that spread underneath has been super, super strong and super consistent, just not able to, get in the votes every week. Whereas in the men's side, it was, often players that weren't necessarily playing super well. And we're only able to, potentially get a vote or 2 in a couple of rounds. So, whilst the leaderboard is kind of looking similar, it certainly is for different reasons because, Garner and Riddell have been standouts, but they've had so many helpers and so many other players playing super roles this year. And I think maybe it's certainly the first game for quite a while that I haven't had someone new in the votes. So, yeah, Garner, Riddell, and O'Loughlin, the top 3 at the moment. And, it's heating up underneath them because I think the race for third is going to be super interesting. I think whoever finishes in that third position this year will have had an amazing year underneath two of the best players in the competition, if we're being honest with each other, or with ourselves rather. Before we jump into the positives and negatives, which is what's coming up next, I just want to say thank you so much to the listeners of the podcast. We are coming towards the end of the year, but please do share me out with any North Melbourne fans that you know. In particular, some North Melbourne AFLW fans. I know that obviously the women's game doesn't have as big a supporter base as the men's side, So there are less of us out there, but if you do know someone in your life that follows the AFLW and is a North Melbourne fan, please let them know about me and about North Pod. Subscribe on your chosen podcast service and leave me a review or a rating if you can, and get involved with my social accounts, primarily X and Instagram at North Pod Show. You can follow me everywhere though. I do really appreciate the support. If you'd like to show your support in an additional way, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee where you can support me individually. And I appreciate everyone who does that. I'll give you a shout out if you do support the show. But what I love and value the most is your listenership. So I appreciate you for listening. It's such a great community that we've built here at Northpod. And thank you as a listener for being a part of it. Let's have a look at some negatives and positives. It's always nice when you're struggling to find some negatives. So I think the easy one is early on the Swans were able to move the ball against us and create some uncontested marking through transition play, and that's not something that we've really seen much of from opposition sides this year. It was only about 15 minutes of football, but they were able to, like I said, have some kick mark, take some marks out in the lead, and early on there was probably not some danger signs, but you went, okay, like we're in for a fight today. I think probably the other part of it is we've barely played in dry conditions, so that makes it really hard for opposition sides to do that kind of thing, just like we found it trickier to transition the ball as well. I think, the positive is we were able to adjust at quarter time, or you could argue we adjusted, towards the end of the first quarter. I just think we were able to, push them wider. We pushed Sydney very wide after that first quarter, and you saw them kicking it out on the full, or us receiving lasso free kicks because that Sydney had touched it last several times, and that was due to our zone pushing them really wide. That was the only really space or the opportunities that they had. It worked out well for us. They were turning it over and we were able to launch it back our direction. There was a play there where I think 2 or 3 times it went out on the full or out for a lasso free kick right near the ice cream van there. There was a massive line for the ice cream van, so I suspect there was some Sydney fans that saw the writing on the wall and thought, well, I'm going to go grab an ice cream whilst we get belted, or potentially it was just some North fans that wanted an ice cream to celebrate. Regardless, I think Sydney were able to transition the ball pretty well in that first 15 minutes. It was uncharacteristic of us to allow those uncontested marks, but we adjusted. So, it's 15 minutes of negative, but ultimately it didn't mean too much for the game. Probably the biggest negative, potentially, depending on what the scans say and how this week goes, is Erica O'Shea's injury. I think she's had a really, really impressive year. She was one that I wasn't necessarily sold on when I watched the footy last year. I thought that she sometimes took the game on a little bit too much and wasn't necessarily that damaging with her disposal. But this year she's been super important. She's been able to flick the switch and turn the afterburners on and create some distance. And, her meters gained has been important, but just her ability to take the game on has been super important. So potentially she could be out with an injury. We'll have to wait and see what the scans say. She kind of got crunched in a double tackle and her leg got stuck underneath her and twisted a little bit. It looked like it was probably a knee or, like certainly lower leg, but Sarah Ollie down the boundary line talked about the fact that she came out in a moon boot and that it was potentially just an ankle roll. So hopefully that's what it is, a bit of a sprain, and maybe O'Shea has a week or two off just to make sure that swelling's not too much of a problem. I'm sure, no doubt, they'll get a scan or an X-ray, and we'll see if there's actually anything beyond that. But that would be a serious issue if she was out. It would, open the door for us to rotate through some different players, which, that's the positive you can see in it. But hopefully it is just an ankle roll and maybe you give her a week off and she's able to come back in against the Crows. We will either way miss her run and dash off half-back, whether it's a week off or several weeks off. She really complements Birch and Ferguson, so we do need her fit for finals. But I could see precautionary-wise, let's give her a week off. Eliza Shannon comes back in and is able to get some game time. You could look at it from that positive lens. So hopefully her leg's okay. It didn't look good. She looked very upset. She looked a little bit teary as she was coming off and was essentially putting no weight on it, but potentially it was just a bit of shock or one of those ones where you get it at a really bad angle and it really hurts, but then after a while, it's not too bad. I guess, we'll wait and see what the scans say. No doubt this is a Sunday game, so maybe Tuesday we might find out potentially if she gets some scans on Monday. We'll see what happens there. And then I think, you do have to address the fact that, against a classier side, having the ball spend the amount of time that it did in our defensive 50 is going to result in more goals conceded. So it is an issue. Like, it did play into our game style such that, we were able to then slingshot really effectively because there was so much space up for the rest of the ground to run into. But I think we can strike a balance there. There was a lot of stoppages quite deep inside our defensive 50. I think you'd like to move that stoppage work and that congestion up, a kick or a kick and a half up the ground. So it's maybe more sitting 70 or 80 metres out from your defensive goal. That still allows you plenty of space out the back to run into and to slingshot and to use your offensive weapons to get out the back, like we saw us do so many times. But it also reduces that danger of conceding a goal from a quick kick, like we did for the Swans' last goal. So, I think you do want to address the fact that the ball did spend probably a little bit more time in our defensive half of the ground than you would like. Because, like I said, you just don't want to concede a quick kick or, sometimes a fluky free kick because someone gets caught high or that kind of thing. You want to avoid those kind of risks. So I think the fact that we were able to get the ball into space and rebound so effectively is the promising part. And we did bend at times, but we didn't break. I think there were times there where Sydney had it locked in for several minutes, for several repeat stoppages, but we didn't relent. We didn't really, aside from giving up that last goal of the game, we really didn't give them too much. Rennie did make a mistake at one point where she won a free kick, was a little bit too slow disposing of the footy, and so was called to play on, and then just had to kick long and quickly and turned it over. But besides that one incident, I can't really think of too much that we did wrong defensively. It's just that the ball was spending so much time there that you put yourself at risk, I suppose what I'm trying to say there. So, like I said off the top, if it's a better side, if you're playing the Crows or you're playing Brisbane, then I think that amount of footy sitting there probably results in more goals. Sydney's plan certainly was to throw numbers at the contest and hence winning the tackle count, but it didn't stop us once we were able to get the ball into space. So, look, you take the positives with the negatives on that one. It's kind of swings and roundabouts, but if you're playing a better side, I don't think you want the ball to spend as much time in our defensive half as it did. So, I think that's hopefully something that we can tidy up moving forward. And then finally, this is more just one for the commentary. For the millionth week in a row, I felt like the commentary is just celebrating a side that is somewhat competing with us. But ultimately, they got done by 10 goals. So I just don't know that you can actually, as commentators, say that with a straight face. I get that it's an entertainment product, but I just love to see them call it like it is. After quarter time, we really flattened them, and you could almost argue toyed with the Swans at times. And you'd think that we were only up by a goal or two. The commentary was really looking for ways to say that Sydney was still in the game. It was a little sickening at times. So, look, I get it. You probably see it's a North Melbourne game against a not strong AFLW side, and you look for ways to be a bit optimistic about the game. But I think to say that the Swans were in it is a little bit disingenuous because their ability to hit the scoreboard was just not there after the first 10 or 15 minutes. Positives. Let's look at some positives because there certainly were some. I thought our physicality in the game, it was brutal. We were such a strong side and we played super fair. I mentioned it before, Vicky Wall is going to kill someone one day. She had 2 absolutely brutal tackles, smashed O'Sullivan at one point with, it looked bad. It wasn't sling, but you could describe it as semi-sling. She essentially grabbed an unaware player relatively high on their jumper and just yanked them down. It wasn't a sling because she let him go, but it was such force. I think even the umpire was surprised because he didn't pay anything. To me, it had to be either a dangerous tackle or a holding the ball, but he paid neither. O'Sullivan then got smashed, maybe 10 minutes later when Randall ran through her and took a teammate with her. So O'Sullivan actually went off with an elbow injury as a result of those 2 impacts. She had a brutal game. But yeah, I mean, Vicky Wall, massive, kicked a goal today, which was nice because that's probably been the one thing that's been missing from her game a little bit. Just she doesn't need to kick 4 or 5, but if she's able to kick one a game and have 10 touches, but bring that brutal pressure, I think that's the perfect game for her. We saw Randall and Sheila really attacking the footy every contest they got. Like I mentioned, Randall took out O'Sullivan. Sheila gave away a free kick at one point for what was deemed unrealistic attempt. But I think sometimes in the women's game, the umpires just pay a free kick when they think, gee, that was a big contest, that was a bit rough. Because I certainly don't think that Sheila would have been giving away a free kick if it was the men's competition. I think if a player hadn't gotten in front of her and marked it, she's taking a chest mark. So to me, that's not an unrealistic attempt. But anyway, the physicality is what I want to talk about there, and the fact that they were running and jumping at the footy and making the opposition players think twice about running back with the flight is what you want to see. That unsocial football is what decides games when it gets to finals time. So I think it's great that we're tuning into that now, and we have the physical size to do so. We've got a really tall forward line which works in conditions like these, and you want your tools to be running through the opposition players. Like I mentioned, Emma King took a nice specky, and Sheila and Randall were attacking the footy really hard. So, yeah, I thought our physicality was great. Obviously, the tackle count was high for us as well because it was such a contested game. But, those players where their role is to hit the footy hard and attack the footy hard, I thought did a fantastic job of that. I think possibly the best part of this game was our unselfishness. All game, we were just looking for players to hand pass it over the top to or to kick it to who were just in a slightly better position or with slightly more space. The perfect example early on for this was Kate Sheila. Jazzy Garner kicked it probably from 40 metres or so and certainly was trying to hit Kate Sheila, who was in the goal square all alone. Sheila let it go because she thought that it was going to bounce through for Jazzy Garner. It was fortunate. It nearly took a little left-hand turn and hit the post, but ultimately that was Sheila saying, I think Jazzy's earned this one, and that was a perfect one where Jazzy had sort of sensed the opportunity where the ball from the contest had gotten away from her, and so she made the decision to run forward. She created some space for herself, ran onto a loose ball, and then, like I mentioned, had tried to hit Sheila when she could have gone for a goal. Sheila let it go through for a goal, and that's that unselfish, doesn't matter who kicks the goal, we just want to kick the goal type of vibe and energy that you want to bring. Ellis O'Loughlin's last goal was another where it was just handball after short kick where we were just giving it to that next player in the chain. Eventually she kicked a goal, got pushed in the back, so it got called back, and then she was able to slot it from the set shot. But that's that, I guess, trust building that you see the good sides doing, where we actually just don't care who ends up on the end of it, but our avenue to goal, we have so many different avenues to goal, and we don't really mind who does it. So no one feels like they need to be the one finishing the work off, and I think that is reflected by the goal kickers. Like O'Loughlin and Garner kick 3, Randall and Neve Martin kick 2, Vicky Wall, Sheila, King and Bella Eddy kicked 1 each. It's a good spread, to have 8 goal kickers in an AFLW game where you've kicked 14 goals, I think is a massive win. And it's, a combination of mids and forwards getting on the end of it. Yeah, I think for me, the unselfishness is a massive thing because, again, coming into finals, it's not about someone standing up and kicking 4 or 5 in a final. It's about what's giving us the best chance to score a goal in a final, and you need that kind of unselfish team-first attitude. So I think we're really attuned to that now. It's looking fantastic. And I think circling back to that first negative that I spoke about, it was really pleasing that we were challenged early, but we were able to adjust within the game and run out really quite dominant winners. Dominated a lot of stats. Obviously, the inside 50s was one that we lost and was far more even than you might like, but we won the hitouts 53-42. We won the clearances 45-28. So a real dominance in the clearance game, and that's what was allowed us to slingshot out the back and have so many of those scoring opportunities on the run. We had 22 more contested possessions. We had 6 more marks, 8 to 4 marks inside 50. We only laid 13 tackles inside 50 to their 30, but I think that speaks to how efficient we were with the footy. The ball didn't spend a lot of time just hanging out inside our inside our 50 because it would go in there and we'd score, more than 60% of the time. So whilst we got dominated in the tackles inside 50 count, I certainly don't think that's something to be too concerned about because we were able to be so efficient. The fact that, our percentage is still sitting above 300 after 8 games is remarkable. We're finding new ways to break opposition teams. It's super exciting stuff. So cannot speak more highly of this side. I think for anyone who's a bit on the fence about, getting excited about AFLW and about particularly the North Melbourne side, I think, jump on now. There's no shame in jumping on a bandwagon, particularly when the men's side has been so bad for so long. This is such a breath of fresh air. Another fantastic win for the girls. In terms of looking ahead to next week, I spoke about it a bit earlier on. It's another Sunday game, so a full 7-day break, Sunday the 20th of October. It's 3:05, so the second game for the day at Windy Hill, so an away game against Essendon. They're currently sitting in 7th place, so not complete easy beats, but certainly a side that we should beat and we should be confident of beating. I think the fact that we're well past the condensed fixture now and we'll have an 8-day break into a 7-day break, really there's no excuses. It should be another comfortable win if everything goes to plan, and we're certainly no stranger to some poor conditions. So if it does get windy like it can at Windy Hill, or if we happen to have another wet day, I think we can play in any conditions. The goals really just have to be to keep winning and to stay as injury-free as possible, and just maintain that form. So potentially, Eliza Shannon or Lula Puller could come in for someone like O'Shea if she does have to spend some time out. I mentioned her a few weeks ago, but I still would like to see Liz McGrath potentially get a game for either Emma King or for Kim Rennie, just to know that we've got that backup ruck if something was to go wrong in the lead up to or during finals. I know you don't want to mess with your players too much, but for me, that's probably the one that I'd be a little bit concerned if one of those went down and we haven't played Liz McGrath all year. That being said, we saw in the men's, Darcy Fort came in having played only a handful of games all year and did a fantastic job in the Big O's absence in the AFL Grand Final. So, look, it's not something that I am super passionate about, but I do think when you're in this position where you are top of the ladder and you're in amazing form and potentially you've got 2 of the 3 next games that you would expect to win pretty comfortably, particularly that Gold Coast game, maybe that's when you do it. I just think you consider it. That's really all there is to say about next week for right now. I think Eliza Shannon would be probably first in for Erica O'Shea if she does happen to be injured. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that during the week. Potentially it might take a day longer given the girls need to travel back from Tasmania as well. That'll all happen and come out in the coming days, no doubt. That will do it for the podcast for this week. I will be back to speak to you for AFLW in about a week's time. We'll be talking about the game from Windy Hill that I was just referencing, but I think there will be a podcast midweek talking about the closing of the AFL men's trade period and free agency period, so you can look forward to that probably Wednesday or Thursday evening. I'd say that would drop. The trade period doesn't close until Wednesday, so I certainly won't be recording until then. Plenty of North Pod content still to come, and as always, go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. If you give me a rating or review on your podcast service, that would be much appreciated. And please follow me on all social media at North Pod Show. I'm on X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm also very active on the North Melbourne subreddit. Hope you'll join me for the next episode.